managing ratio spreads. So if you've watched this show for any length of time, like, months or years at this point, hey, I thank you very much. I really appreciate you and all the time you have invested in my content specifically. But you'll know that ratio spreads they're one of my favorite strategies. Now, for the longest time, they were my favorite strategy. Like, they rested atop, the summit all alone, all by their lonesome. Like, they commanded the top spot when it came to my preference for different option strategies. I would have to say now I kind of lean more to just a simple short put, because it's just simpler, and I don't really know that you lose a lot of effectiveness. And so it's obviously gimmies and gotchas. It's obviously, what you're ultimately trying to, achieve and those kinds of things. But without question, ratio spreads, specifically put ratio spreads, are definitely in the top three. I mean, it's short puts, it's ratio spreads, it's strangles. Those are going to be my top three strategies when it comes to trading options. And whether or not, number one is a ratio spread or a short put, and I kind of oscillate between the two. It's not usually a short strangle, just because I am usually bullish in the marketplace. I'm not right now, but most of the time I'm playing the market to the upside. And so given that kind of preference for the positive delta, I tend to lean more to a short put or lean more to a put ratio spread. Whereas a short strangle is obviously going to be a lot more neutral in nature. So that's why it's pretty comfortable in that number three there slot. So managing ratio spreads. Ryan, go ahead and bring us into the info today. All right, gimmies and gotchas, guys. I mean, did we really think it was about anything else? Like, did we really think for a second that we were going to go through a Friday episode without talking about gimmies and gotchas, without talking about the need, without talking about the recognition, without talking about the simple value of understanding that for every gimme, there's a gotcha. For every set of gimmies, you're going to have a corresponding set of gotchas, right? There is no free lunch. There is no holy grail. There is no perfect system. There is no perfect trade where it's just all gimmies for as far as the eye can see, and there's no gotchas in sight. Ratio spreads are incredibly effective strategies with lots of flexibility, but with that versatility comes added complexity. So let me stop right there, because obviously you can see kind of where we're going with the discussion here today. And my overachievers, like, you've already digested the entire slide because it's pretty simple here today. So that's really, really good. But I really want to pause right here just for a quick second. This is probably the main gimme gotcha trade-off. This is probably the main gimme gotcha exchange when it comes to a ratio spread. It's not really anything specific. It's not really anything that you can pinpoint, with a precise, it's that number, it's that aspect of the trade, it's that whatever, that component of the strategy, whatever. It's actually a bit more general than that, in my view. There are other gimmies and gotchas, of course, as you peel back the layers in the onion. But just looking at the onion from like 10 feet away or 20 feet away, it's like, okay, I can see the gimme and the gotcha with that onion. Like, I understand the good and the bad with that onion. And with a ratio spread, this onion that we happen to be looking at right here, that is the ratio spread, which, by the way, Glass Onion, phenomenal movie. So if you're looking for something to do this weekend, watch Glass Onion. It will have you entertained, but I digress. Versatility and complexity. So really, if you think about it, right, versatility, ceteris paribus, all other things being equal, that's going to be a gimme, of course. I want more versatility. I want more flexibility. I want to be more agile. I want to be more dexterous. Right? I want to be all these things. And so that it clearly is going to be a gimme when it comes to the ratio spread. However, it's more complex, right? There are layers underneath the layers. Right? There are, subplots underneath the main plot. And so there is an added complexity to this. And that's kind of related to what we're going to talk about today specifically, as I'm going to kind of highlight one of those layers of complexity. And I'm marking that up as a gotcha. Now, people who have been trading for a while and you're comfortable with ratio spreads, you've been doing them for a while, this may not be a big gotcha. It may not even be a gotcha at all, because you are very, very experienced. But for us mere mortals in the room, for us mere peasants and plebes in the room, this is going to be a gotcha for most of us. It's like, hey, it's really complex. I don't quite know what I've signed up for. I'm not quite sure what to do, in X scenario or Y scenario or Z scenario. Yes, those things will come with time. Yes, those things will come with experience. But right now, on day 1 or day 100 or day 300, I'm not quite sure what to do. That's a gotcha. That's a pretty big gotcha in my estimation. When it comes to the ratio spread specifically, and this is also going to prove to be very helpful for us to make sure that we understand and recognize as we look at my Google ratio spread here in a second. When we put on a ratio spread, we collect a credit on entry. This is a very important part of this strategy. This is one of the keys to this strategy. It is a short premium strategy, right? We are selling premium. This is very similar to a short put, to a short put spread, to an iron condor in that regard. We are selling premium. We are collecting a credit on entry. Now, it's very different from those other strategies and a lot of other ways, but I did want to at least highlight the commonality here on the front end. The credit collected. Okay, we collect credit. But think about a lot of other short premium strategies. Basically all the ones I just mentioned. Short put spread, iron condor. And there are others, of course, but let's just stop with those three. What is your maximum profit on those trades? It's going to be whatever you sell the strategy for, whatever you collect on entry. You collect $1 on a short put, that's your max profit. You collect, $1.75 on a short put spread, that's your max profit. You collect $2 on an iron condor, that's your max profit. Okay, so most of the time when you sell premium, the credit that you collect on entry is indeed your max profit. However, with a ratio spread, because of the complexity, because of the flexibility of the strategy, the credit that you collect is not your max profit. The credit that you collect plus the width of the spread that's baked into the ratio spread, the width of that vertical spread that's baked in there, or in the case of a put ratio spread, it's of course going to be a long put vertical spread. The credit collected plus the spread width, that's going to be your max profit. So you see, the credit collected, it's a part of it, of course. It's a piece to the overall puzzle, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle. That's really important when you start thinking about, I want to manage at 50% of max profit, or I have some, percentage of max profit that I'm targeting, which is what we typically do with short premium trades. It's just not that simple with ratio spreads. It's just not that simple at all with ratio spreads. And so I really wanted to kind of lay down the groundwork today and lay a nice, firm, at least somewhat firm, at least, mildly pliable foundation for us to work from when it comes to understanding ratio spreads and their management and the potential profits, et cetera, et cetera. When you have a ratio spread on, and this is the green box down here, I think it's reasonable, and this is my own take. Right. I didn't necessarily take this off of, the Tasty research. I didn't necessarily borrow this from like a Bob Nosnoff or a Pony Babista. These are my own kind of unfiltered, kind of raw, kind of, personally biased thoughts. I like to target most of the credit that I collect. And I don't really have a percentage in my head, usually not, at least not a hard and fast one. But once I get to about 65%, I consider myself to be in the most of region. Now, some people could say, well, you kind of got to be at 70, 75, 80. That's perfectly fine. When I look at a ratio spread, however, when I look at a put ratio spread, I'm typically at, once I get to that 60, 65% threshold of the credit that I've collected, with the understanding that this is not the percentage of max profit for the reasons we just outlined a couple of seconds ago, that's where I look to take this trade off. And we're going to talk about why when we look at the Google trade specifically. But this is basically how I approach the management of a winning ratio spread. All right, so Ryan, go ahead and bring us back into the portfolio here. So let's take a look at my Google trade, and let's kind of wrap this thing up and tie it off with a bow. Market up 58 right now. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And then I want to get to all y'all's questions, man. Let's get to as many of your questions as we can. So here's the strategy that we're going to look at. So Google. You can see I have a 1/2 ratio spread, right? I'm long a 90 put. I'm short a couple 88 puts. This is a very standard Betty Crocker ratio spread. No surprises, like no creative innovation here. This is just very, very typical, very standard. When you look at the fact that I collected $1.60 on entry, just to, by the way, just to tie into some things we talked about on the slide really quick, let's break out the Final Jeopardy pen just to break out the Final Jeopardy pen. If I sold this for $1.60, that's obviously my credit collected. Now I also have a $2 wide spread in there. So my max profit would actually be, it's a pretty aggressive looking too. But nevertheless, my max profit would be $3.60. So if I were targeting, this is actually really, really, really good illustration. If I were targeting 50% of this number, I would actually be targeting, obviously, what, $1.80, right? I don't know if anybody has Julia Spina's personal number. But just to, make sure that's correct, I'm pretty sure that's $1.80. If I was targeting 50% of maximum profit, overall maximum profit, as if there is a different type of maximum profit, it would be $1.80. Now look at the fact that I've collected $1.60 on entry. So that would mean So that would mean, and we actually answered a question about this. I think it was this week on the stream. Somebody was asking me about a broken wing butterfly, like getting in for a credit and out for a credit. If I were targeting 50%, the maximum profit on this strategy, that is what I would be requiring of this trade. I would need to exhaust this entire credit collected, this $1.60 on entry, and I need to get out for another 20-cent credit. Can you guys kind of see how these numbers set up? This is such a good teachable moment. I didn't even expect to find this when we were kind of working through the numbers of Google, but this is really, really cool. I would need this to work out so perfectly that there's no way this is going to happen at 21 days to go. There is no way that this is going to happen at any time before maybe the final week of expiration, the final few days before expiration. And that's one of the, versatile components of a ratio spread. And so keep that in mind when you start thinking about managing your ratio spreads. When I'm looking at the strategy, I'm like, hey, it's selling for 57 cents right now. If Google stays out of the money, if Google stays high and the options stay out of the money would be a better, more correct way to say that. If that happens, I'm only going to make another 55 cents. That's the most I can make. And to make that, I've got to hold to the very end, expiration, everything drains off, no extrinsic value left. I don't really want to do that for all the reasons we talk about all the time, gamma risk and 21 days to go and all those different things. And so to me, it's like, all right, I'm clearly over, my 65% threshold. I'm probably around I've made $1 off of $1.60 base. So that's like 16. Yeah, I'm at about 65%. I'm like right there in terms of like what I would be looking to collect out of the strategy, somewhere around 65% ish. And so I think this is good. I think it's a good time to take this trade off. Although clearly based on market action today, we're never going down again. Like this is it. Like we've seen the bottoms, we've seen the lows. Nobody cares about Bostic. Nobody cares about Waller. I think Uncle Jay talks on Tuesday. Nobody cares about that. Nobody gives a rip. We're going back to all-time highs. Me, you, and Tom Lee, we're all headed back to all-time highs by Thursday, maybe Friday of next week at the absolute latest. So let's go ahead. Let's close this guy down. And then let's get to some questions, man. Let's do it. So let's close it down. Let's free up a little bit of capital that we can use on some other trades that will most likely not work out as well as this one did. So, all right, so filled for 59 cents. So yeah, so we made $1.01 off of $1.60 base. So yeah, it's about 65%, I think. So all right, cool. So that's Google. That's managing a ratio spread.